TIFU by not realizing she was trying to sleep with me. By user apart expression 891. This was years ago, but I recently told the story to someone again and wanted to share here. Back in college, I used to hang out with the girl one dorm building over. We would hang out and smoke a cigarette and then go out merry way most of the time. It was late December and she mentioned the movie Elf, which I had never seen. She insisted I come up to her room and watch it, so I did. We were watching the movie for about 20 minutes when she says, "Hey, did you know my boobs are different sizes?" Me. Oh, me, like dramatically different. That's kind of cool. Yeah, want to see? Me? Sure. She then took her whole top and bra off, and sure enough, one of her boobs was noticeably larger than the other. The bigger one is heavier. Feel the difference. I then reached out and pushed the underside of both boobs to compare, and sure enough, one was heavier. I told her that that was cool and went back to watching Elf. Eventually, she put her shirt on, and I ended up leaving because I was tired or something. I legit did not even consider this was anything else than sharing a neat fact about her tits till weeks later. The poor girl tried being even more direct a few times later after winter break, but I had started dating someone, and it just never lined up. I apologize if you're somehow reading this, dude. I really had no clue. Obviously, I'm still just as oblivious today. This elder girl invited to her dorm room, showed me her breasts, and asked me to feel them, and I assumed we just buds watching a movie. TIFU by asking my partner to play video games in bed. By user should take my item. This started a few years ago. As the title says, I effed up by asking my partner to play video games in bed. We had opposite schedules for a long while, and I used to have a hard time falling asleep without him in bed with me. I went to bed hours earlier than he usually did, and he wanted to play games in the evenings. So our compromise was him sitting in bed playing while I slept. This meant that I'd fall asleep to the sounds of the game, him and our friends chatting over Discord, and the rhythmic sounds of him tapping on his iPad. This is where the fuck up comes into play. This happens to be a game we both like playing, and especially together when we both have time. On the nights where I decide I want to stay up later and play with him and all our friends, no matter how awake I am at the start of the game, I almost immediately get incredibly sleepy and often fall asleep in the middle of playing. It's at the point that even during the day, after the best night's sleeps, when I'm wide awake, that I will all of a sudden be exhausted and fall asleep mid-game. After months of this happening and it now becoming a joke amongst my partner and our friends, it clicked. I accidentally created a sleep trigger for myself by having my partner play games every night as I fell asleep for over 2 years. Doctor asked my partner to play games in bed so I could still fall asleep with him next to me and created a sleep trigger. Now I fall asleep every time we play this particular game together, no matter how awake I was or felt at the start. TIFU by thinking my friend was a trans woman for months. By user only row. This is a funny story and some friends said I should post on here. A little backstory. I moved to a different state 2 years ago for work and didn't know anyone. Over time, I met a good group of people who I hang out with on a weekly basis. This was a pretty well-established group and I fortunately was accepted into their ranks. Some of these people have known each other since they were in high school, so they all know each other very well. Despite this, I've never felt excluded or left out and really do love these guys. There are a few people in this group that are a part of the Goku in some way, one of these people being Jane, fake name. I want to make it clear that I support the LGBT community.
I couldn't care less what people identify as, and even though I'm not a part of it, I respect everyone's identity. Jane is someone who is very secure in their identity and has no problem openly talking about her sexuality.
One day, while we were all out at a bar, Jane and some of our other friends were talking about their dating history preferences. Jane brought up how she has been with both men and women and doesn't care about the gender of her partners. That's when a different friend, who is also LGBT, intervened and said something like exactly what I expect a trans woman to say. Jane didn't deny the trans comment, just gave a little wink and continued with the conversation. Because I was still fairly new to the group at this time, I took this comment at face value and just thought, I guess Jane's trans, and moved on. I didn't want to pry considering I wasn't that close with Jane yet. It kind of remained just a thought in the back of my mind and nothing really serious. As the months went by, Jane never mentioned their trans identity again, and no one in the group ever said anything about it. So I assumed it was just something Jane doesn't like to bring up. By this point, I'd been friends with this group for a little over a year now and was significantly closer with everyone, including Jane. Jane's in the process of moving out of her current apartment into a much nicer one. Way to go, Jane. And And yesterday, I was helping her move some stuff because I own a truck, and I was more than happy to help her. While bringing things into her new apartment, I noticed what seemed like an old family photo from Jane's childhood. There was an older man and woman who I assumed were her parents, a young girl and a young boy. I turned to Jane and said, I didn't know you had a sister with all the confidence and curiosity in the world. That's when Jane made a face and said, I don't, and walked over to where I was, where she saw the photo I was looking at. She pointed at the little kids in the photo and said, that's me with my brother. I must have looked like a lost child or something, because when she looked back up at me, she asked what was wrong, and I said, so you're the girl here? Yeah, and that boy is your brother? Yeah. By this point, I was really confused because Jane couldn't have been older than 5 in this photo, but still looked like a little girl. So I finally asked, sorry if this is too personal, but what age did you transition? That's when Jane now wore a confused look on her face and said, what are you talking about? At this point, I was genuinely curious, still not understanding what was really happening. So I said, what do you mean? What am I talking about? I know it's none of my business, but you just look super young here. How old were you when you transitioned? Then Jane just smiled and said, on Lero, do you think I'm trans? I answered with a very unconfident ease. Then Jane asked why I thought that. Then I told her the story about the comment our friend made at the bar. It had been months since that specific hangout, and how she didn't deny it, and how no one ever brought it up again, so I didn't want to. At this point, Jane was on the ground dying of laughter, and I felt so embarrassed. Luckily, she didn't take offense and thought it was hilarious. Even immediately calling one of our other friends to let her know I thought Jane was trans for the majority of our friendship. So, moral of the story, gender is a spectrum, and don't take gender jokes at face value. And if you're ever confused about someone's gender, just ask. It'll save you a lot of embarrassment. Doctor, I thought one of my friends was a trans woman after a dumb joke our other friend made and didn't know they were cis until about a year into our friendship. Edit. To everyone complaining about the block of text, I separated it. TIFU, when I saw my ex, by user bbeer2012. This is more of a personal embarrassment. I ran into an ex today, and I don't mean recent. I mean like decades ago. Haven't seen this person since our breakup back when we were really young. At the time, it was my first love, and I didn't handle the breakup well. I didn't do anything super crazy like boil bunnies. Just called and left tearful messages on the answering machine. Obviously, I've moved on, been married, had kids. But there's a place that your first love will always hold. Apparently, I was not their special first love. First of all, I was at a place where I'd gone with that ex at the time. It's a popular place that I've been to before and since. But for some reason, I remember today the time we carved our initials in a tree. I didn't even look at the tree. Just remembered it for a second. You know, it must have been that phenomenon where you randomly think of someone before you see them. Because a few minutes later, there they were, being the idiot I am. I thought it would be a friendly run-in. Like, hey, long time no see. First, they didn't know who I was until I said my name. Then, for some stupid reason, I said I was just thinking about you. Crickets. Disbelief. Me backpedaling and saying that we went to this place together a lot, and they did not remember at all. I always thought if I ever saw this person again that I would be cool. Not stick my foot in my mouth, not sound like a crazy stalker. Now, of course, I keep playing it on repeat in my mind and cringing every time. Still, doctors saw an ex after decades and made myself look like a desperate idiot. TIFU by posting a pic of my husband and me on Reddit. By user Megan Rose. We got dressed up for a wedding, and I was just kind of feeling proud of our love. So I posted a pics, just of us sitting down, smiling in pretty sunlight. But man, did people feel the need to comment negatively. This isn't a poor me situation. I'm aware I'm posting for whoever the hell to see. But it was interesting to me how many people felt the need to say something negative. So I removed the post because why the fuck would I let it get any worse? I didn't expect compliments or anything, really. I just didn't expect so much negativity. Is it not easy for people to just scroll past something they don't care about? The internet's a wild place. The amount of comments about one of us being good in bed or our ethnicities. It was just interesting and maybe a bit eye-opening. Tulter posted a pic of my husband and people decided to be vulgar and rude for seemingly no reason. Ada, thank you to everyone who took the time to reply. A few lessons have been learned, IA. Don't post on larger subs and the picture still stays on my profile, even when it's removed. I appreciate all the extremely kind words people added to the original post on Run Love. The good has far outweighed the bad in this situation, and I'm more affected by that than any of the original negativity. It's been a wild couple of days, and it's a relief to know most of us also hate racism and body shaming. Reason for deleting the post. Cheers.